Okay, we're going to be building a basic text website. There's going to be some programming in this, so you want to pay close attention. I'm not going to describe every inch of programming because since this is a assumption that you have a little bit of programming, if you've stayed with the prior lessons, you should be able to figure some of this pretty easily. Where it needs some discussion, I'll go ahead and comment those things out so that you'll see what's going on. This is what CS5 looks like when you open it up. We're going to go ahead and select ActionScript 2 right now to build our website. It's going to be, again, mostly text-based. You can add graphics as you like, but I think once you get the idea, it'll be easy for you to actually go in and manipulate it. Fairly easy. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Modify my document, and I'm going to make it 600 by 400. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller. It really doesn't matter as long as you understand that this is where we go to modify our document settings. Now you can modify this document anytime during the process. However, if you're going to make it bigger, you have to realize that you have to make a choice whether you do that now or later. If you do it later, then that changes the positioning of some items that are going to be set up on a 0,0 axis or XY axis, and so you would have to go in and make some changes. So try to figure out how big you need this now rather than later, but again, you're never stuck. I'm going to change my frame rate to 30. It can be faster, it can be slower, but that means it's 30 frames per second. So it's going to run 30 of these in 1 second. If we wanted to make a movie, imagine how long our movie, if we made, say, a 2-minute movie, how many frames we would have to figure out would be in a 2-minute movie if we're doing 30 frames per second. We can change the pixels if you'd like to inches if you're more comfortable, but in this case I'm going to stay with pixels, but inches gives you a good idea of what it would look like if you were actually drawing it out on paper. Try to remember that 72 pixels equals 1 inch, so that should give you a pretty good idea how big something is. I'm going to hit OK. This enlarges just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Show All. I want to look at all of my stage right at this point, so I don't want to have anything happening out here. You'll notice I've got Flash Player 10 set up, ActionScript 2. If I want to set this up so that the most people can view it without having to update to the newest Flash Player, I go to File, I can go to my Publish Settings, go to Flash here, and notice that I can change it in my settings here. And then once I've done that, let's say we say Flash Player 6. That's a few years back, but that allows people who probably aren't as proficient in keeping their players updated to still be able to see your website without any problems. This is important because we want, if accessibility is important, then you want to make it as easy as possible for somebody so that we don't have this constant update, or because some people just don't do that. Okay, we'll go ahead and leave it at Flash 10 though for right now. And then if you want to change anything with the HTML, you can do that. We've got looping set up, we've got it set up to high quality, we've got it also set up if we put together an HTML page so that it is centered in the horizontal and centered in the vertical, so that obviously, depending on the page size, means there's going to be some white space around this movie. And I'm going to leave the background white just for that reason. I'm going to hit OK because we didn't really change anything. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to draw 2 lines, and these are going to be permanent parts of the background so that they're never going to change. And you can pick a color. If you want it to be a certain color, you can pick that here, and you can also pick the stroke size here. If you don't know what the stroke looks like, go ahead and apply it. So I'm going to go hold the Shift key down and drag across here, and that's the stroke size. If I want it bigger, I'll just go back, select it, go to my Properties box over here, and make it wider. Probably one thing we didn't discuss, and let's do that right now, is I'm in Classic View here. when you first start up your program, different views could be coming up, giving you a different layout of all of your toolbars. We have Developer here, which gives us a completely different look. We have Essentials, which just gives us our essentials. And this is probably the closest. Essentials and Classic are probably the closest to CS4 and CS3 and MX. So you're more than welcome to use Essentials. When we click on here, we get kind of the same property boxes as we would. You just have to manipulate the side over here. Or you can go into Classic and your property bar comes up over here. So it's all about preference. What do you prefer? So I have I have this line and I want to set in another line. So here's I've done, whoops, let's just do show all again. Show frame. And I'm going to put another line down. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller because I don't want it to be that big. Now I can do one of two things. I can hold the Shift key down, grab this and pull it down. Oops, the Control key, sorry about that. And grab it and pull it up, and it will make two of them so that I don't have to draw another line. I have two lines with the same exact properties. So again, that's holding the Control key down, pulling this down, and you get a line. I'm going to actually just go ahead and delete that line since I don't need it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some text. The text is going to be pretty simple. Off to the side here, if you are working in ActionScript 3, you're going to see TLF. TLF is only for ActionScript 3 because of its properties within ActionScript 3. We're going to select classic text, and we don't want dynamic, we just want it to be static. It's not going to do anything for us. And I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to type in Hartnell College, Salinas, California. Now again, you can make this as big or as small as you want by coming over to the property window here. The font is going to be embedded, so that means when we go to export this out into a Swift file, it will embed the font. I want to make sure that my bitmap text, no anti-aliasing, is selected. Here's a couple of other options, but for us, bitmap text will work. My size I can change quite easily. If I change it to 14, I hit enter. Notice that the text became larger. Currently it's in bold and Arial. If you don't like any of those options, then you can change them to something that's a little more to your liking. But the idea is to really make this readable. Okay, so I'm control, there we go. If I don't like the text though, I can change that, and if I want it to look more like this color, all I'm going to do is select it, change my color, come over here and grab this one, and then it will automatically change my text for me. So that makes that easy enough. This is my background layer. So let me click this. This is my background layer, and this is never going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name for this and call it background. And I'm going to lock it because this isn't going to change at this point. We can go ahead and add things, and if we have to change anything down the road, then I'll tell you what to do in those particular cases. But for right now, this will work just fine. We're going to focus a lot on more of the mechanics of this, not so much on the frou-frou design. You can add more design, you can do a whole lot of other things to this, but I want you to really get an idea of how to put this together. Okay, so that you understand how to do this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert another layer, and I'm going to call this ActionScript. My ActionScript layer is always on the top, and even when I'm adding more layers, I'm always going to make sure my ActionScript is on the top. It's a little bit of housekeeping. It keeps me more organized, and if you develop good tools now, it will help you down the road to develop, good habits that will see you through. So now we've inserted an action layer. Oops. We've inserted our action layer. We're good to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually make our first button. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to insert another layer above the background layer. So all I did was, if I did that too fast, was I clicked on my background. I selected layer, and I'm going to call this home, because we're going to make a home button, and the home button is going to reside in the home layer. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to draw a gray rectangle on the screen. So here's my rectangle, and I'm going to select gray. I don't want to stroke around it right now, so I'm going to remove the stroke, and I'm just going to select this right there. So I've got a little gray. If it's too dark, we can always go in and change that. And now with the text tool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put text on it, and I'm going to say home. I don't want it to be gray. Let's make it black. I got to go back in and select this, make it black. We're going to want to make it fit that, so let's go ahead and drop that down to say 10. That might be too small. Let's try 12. Oops. Home. It's 10 right now. Let's make it 12. Hit enter. And so our text is a little bit bigger here. And now this is kind of where those design things come into play. This is probably could be a little lighter. And this could be bigger. It could be a different font. But this is just going to give you kind of basically the idea. I'm going to select all of this, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit convert to symbol. I'm going to keep it as a movie clip. Now on the movie clip, I don't want to, this is going to be a button, and you'll notice that I have a movie clip option, I have a button option, or I have a graphic option. I'm actually going to leave it as a movie clip and not pick up the button option, because we'll do that later. We'll add the texting, or the action scripting that will allow us to give it the button properties. So I am going to go ahead and just call this, let's just go ahead and call it home. My registration symbol, again, this is up to you. I'm going to click this and put it right here in the center, and I'm going to hit OK. So now it's all done. I'm going to come in here, and I have it. I'm going to double click in the clip itself. I'm going to select it because it is selected. I want it all selected. If you don't get it selected, I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to say distribute to layers. What this is going to do is you'll notice that I have a layer 1, I have a home, and I have layer 3. What this has done for me is allowed me to, in one fell swoop, take all the elements of that movie clip and distribute them to their own separate layers. So here, if I turn off layer 3, which is my background, it turns off the background. If I turn off the home layer, or the text layer that says home, it turns off the text. And then I have a layer above that, which is perfect because I'm going to call that my action script layer. So that works out real well. So let's go ahead and do some housekeeping. Layer 3, we're going to call this background. Home is home, and then layer 2, we can call this script, we can call it action scripting. As long as you know what that is, we can call it CS, we can call it pretty much anything you want, but you should know and be consistent in what you're going to do with those two things. So I'm just going to say script for right now, because I know that's where I'm going to put my script. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. I'm going to come here and I'm going to insert a keyframe, and then I'm going to go down to frame 10 in my background and insert a keyframe. Now the keyframe, you'll notice we have two keyframes that are black, which means we have the same image in each frame. And then in our action scripting layer, we have blank keyframes because we're going to be adding action scripting probably to the frame in that layer. So this should be pretty clear as to that. So we're going to go ahead and set up some code so that, because we're going to give our buttons some changes or colors that will allow our user to see this interface. So we've got the, remember that the movie clip is a movie clip and not a button symbol, so I want you to pay attention because the next steps could be kind of tricky. After we've put the keyframes in, I want you to go to the 10th frame in the background button, and I want you to change this color right here to green, red, yellow, blue, whatever you want. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and let's go with, say, green. So now what we have, if we scrub our timeline, is we have a gray to green button, or gray to green. It just goes gray, 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 green. Now though, what we're going to do is I want to do a tween in here. So I want to change this so that something happens. We can do a shape tween, we can do a motion tween. Actually, since there's no motion, we're not going to use motion. But if I do shape, I can come over here and I can look at my tweening options. Let's go back to, oh, it's already done it for me. One of the nice things when we do shape and we're working with colors is that the CS5 automatically does that for us so that we don't have to worry about making any changes. So notice now that as I shape my button or tween my button, it goes from gray to green. So right in here's the middle, and you can start to see that changing color, which is perfect for us. So that works out really well. If you're using CS3, you're going to change it doing an alpha tweening or a shape tweening a little differently. So now we need to put some action scripting in there. So in the first frame of the actions layer, we're going to come here, and you can press F0. So we've put the stop action right here again. We've, whoops, right mouse click, actions, we've got our stop action. Now we can go in and look to see if this works. So we hit enter, and if we're lucky, it works. So we get that little roll over there, and it goes back and forth, and voila. So now we have that interactive button made, which is perfect. So after that's all done, we've got it all set up. We've got it enter, we've just made the button movie clip, and it's ready to go. We haven't done anything with that button yet. We're still in the home. Notice we're still in the home button itself. So we're going to do the same thing with all of our other buttons, with all the other things that we want to create for this. So now I'm going to go back to the main stage, which is scene 1, and then we're going to put in, we've got our actions layer, our home, and our background. So now we're going to add a few more layers. So I'm going to add, let's say, history. Let's talk about maybe the history of Hartnell. So I'm going to say history. So we add the history layer, and this is going to be right here. Now remember, if you were in the action script and you added it, your history layer probably ended up on top. You just want to grab that layer and move it up above that. So let me show you. If you were history here and it ended up there, you want to go ahead and grab that history layer and pull it back down and put it right there. So we just want to go ahead and put the layer back down and put it into the position. Remember, I like to have my actions layer on top. The next thing we want to think about other buttons that we could add. Let's say this is a website all about Hartnell, so we could add another layer, let's say of, we've got home, we're going to have history, we'll have, let's see, what else could we do? Let's say classes. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that layer. We'll say classes or programs. Let's do that. Let's do programs. And I'll add one more layer above that. Just click that, and I will put in student bio, and this is where you're going to put in your student bio. How's that? You can change any of these. Right now it's home, history, program, students. The thing that we want to talk about, or that we want to really know or utilize, is that whatever you do, you're going to be using these. By the way, you're going to be using these names again somewhere, so just so that you know, you're going to see these names again. Okay, so now that we've set up our steps, we've set up our layers here. You'll notice we've only got one frame in each layer. We'll be adding more, so that's not a problem. Now remember, if you're going to be working in the history layer, you want to make sure that you click here in the keyframe for the history layer, and you want to be drawing in that layer. Otherwise, you're going to be putting stuff on the last selected layer and everything goes there. Then you have to go back and figure out and cut it out of that layer and paste it to the new layer. Once you're done with a particular layer, go ahead and lock that layer down so that you can't draw in it or do anything. You'll notice that the pencil right there has the X through it so that you can't add anything to it. So we'll go ahead and hit history, and we'll be working within that layer. So now all I want you to do is we're going to actually go and put a stop action up here on this little action script layer before we do anything. So I'm going to right mouse click here, and I'm just going to type in stop. Stop is stop no matter regardless of what action script you're using, and stop keeps us right here stopped so that this doesn't play out. We can't really play out because there's nothing there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some text regarding some layers. So I want you to go ahead and create a new layer under the action layer right here. So we've got students and all of these. So this is home, history, program, student. Now we're going to add text. We're going to say home text, history text, program text, student text. So I'm going to add a layer, and this is where we're going to start putting our layers. So let's just start at the beginning, and we'll say home text, and I want to go ahead and actually I'm going to go ahead and put an underscore in there, and then layer above that I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and put history underscore text, and I'm going to add programs, or program text. We'll just say programs text, and I'm going to add another layer for student bio text. So on that one I'll just double click, underscore student bio. Let's make it one word, student bio, and then underscore text. And so this is where we're going to put all the text for our text frames for our website. And so you're going to see a website that's going to be looking a little different here in a minute as we start to add things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go now to layer 5, and I'm going to just click here, hold the left mouse button down, scroll down, and I'm going to right mouse click and insert frames. So what I've done is I've inserted a bunch of frames here. That's going to give me some opportunities to add stuff. The other thing that we're going to want to do, which is going to be pretty easy, is if you haven't done it already, you want to go ahead and create this home button for history, you want to create it for programs, and you want to create it for student. So that button right there, you're going to want to create one for, again, history, and it should be in the history text, the program text, and the student text. So I'm going to pause this while you go back and you create all of those buttons, and then when we come back we're going to start to add all of the text and the programming that it takes to get on to use those buttons to take us to those areas that we're talking about. Okay, so you've made your buttons. Now here comes a quick trick that allows you, I wanted you to get comfortable making all of those buttons. That's why I wanted you, because we want to learn how to program and understand, and the way we do that is by repeating it and doing it 2 and 3 times, and that's why we did the 4 buttons. Now what I want to do is show you a quick way on how to make those buttons that if I'd have showed you the first time, you would have went, yeah, great, I made it, but I want you to learn how to program or make those changes using the programming so that when they do the rollovers, the button properties show up. To make these buttons quickly, one of the things that I can do is I'm going to go right mouse click on this button. I'm going to hit duplicate symbols. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make kind of an off button. It's not going to be one we're going to use, but I'm going to show you how to make a button by just using a duplicate of one. So it'll say home copy. Let's give it the name Hartnell. Let's just say we were going to talk about something about Hartnell. So I hit OK, and now if I go to my libraries window, I'm going to open up library. You'll notice I have a Hartnell button right here. So here's my history button, here's my home button, my program button, and my student bio button. My Hartnell button looks just like my home button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this Hartnell button by going in and playing with the timeline. Whoops, let's go back. Here's my home. I want to go back to my library. I'm going to double click on the Hartnell button right here so that I get the Hartnell button open right there. So I'm in the Hartnell button. Notice it still says home. So what I'm going to do is change this to the timeline. Make sure you're still in the Hartnell button here, the movie clip. I keep saying button, but it's the movie clip. Here's the Hartnell movie clip. I'm going to go to the timeline, which shows me the timeline for that movie clip itself. The background button, we don't need to worry about the colors changing, but what I do need to do is change the word. So now I'm going to come in here and click on this, go to my text tool, and I'm going to select, I'm going to get rid of all this, and I'm going to type in Hartnell. So there's Hartnell. Now you can't see it very well, so let me open it a little more. So it says Hartnell right there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this keyframe because it said home. And yeah, I could go in and change the text, but I want the same positioning, the same text, the same everything. So all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to insert keyframe. So now what I have is I have Hartnell in 2 places, in the first frame and the last frame, in the 10th frame. And my action scripting is already set up. So now what I've done is I've just duplicated a button, made some changes, and now I can use that button. So I can populate my scene here with the Hartnell button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Window, open the library. I'm going to click this little button over here which says add a new library panel, which means I get this little pop-up box this way. I'm just going to go ahead and grab Hartnell and drop it down here, and now Hartnell is part of all of my button properties. One of the things I have to pay attention to though is notice that this Hartnell and this home changed. Because I changed the home button, it overrode this home button. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm just going to, I'm going to go back to my timeline, my scene. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that original Hartnell, and I'm going to drag, oh shoot, I really messed up there. There's my home button. I'm going to go back to my timeline here. I'm going to click on this button. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it, and I'm going to grab the home button out of the library and drag it back down here. Okay. So now all of my buttons are made. They've got all the same qualities. If I hit Control Enter, notice that when I roll over my buttons, they all work. So far so good. They're a little off kilter, so now what I want to do is I want to line these up. So I'm going to select all of these, and that I'm going to hold the Control key down by selecting them, or the Shift key down by selecting them. And then I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to arrange them. Actually, I want to go to Align, and now I can left align them, and what it will do is left align all the buttons to the left. So go to Modify, Align. If I want a horizontal center, if I want to align them right, it'll align them right to the one that's the furthest most right to this. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Modify, Align, and Left. So now you're at that point where we've made the buttons. I've shown you how to go in and make a quick button by duplicating a button. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that Heart Now button now, click off. I'm going to get rid of that Heart Now button, dump it, doop, and there it goes. Now the next thing I want to do is I kind of want to separate out my menu, and I'm going to put in another horizontal line. I want to be on my background to do that though, so I'm just going to grab a line here, a vertical line, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to push this down, hold it down, and drop a line in there. This one though, I want it to be small. I don't want it to be as big. So I'm just going to change my properties a little bit here and drop it down. So now I have this thin line. My menu's off to the right, left-hand side. I've got this, and so far I'm good to go. Everything looks good. Let's put this show frame. So now we can see this a little bit better. Now what I need to do is I'm going to go in and actually start to insert some keyframes, because my keyframes are going to be where I go to put my text. So this is one of those keyframe places. This is one of those ways that we're going to navigate using keyframes and using flags and tags. So what I'm going to do here is my home text, I'm just going to go ahead and insert a blank keyframe here, right in frame 2. So I'm just going to go insert blank keyframe. For history, I'm going to go in, insert on 3, a blank keyframe. On program, on 4, I'm going to go in, insert blank keyframe. And then finally on 5, for student bio, I'm just going to go right mouse click, insert blank keyframe. So now what I have are a series of empty keyframes that I'm going to populate here in a minute. And this is going to allow me to add some text to my keyframes that will correlate with all of this. So I want you to think about adding a block of text right here. We can do some lorem ipsum, but in this case it's not necessary, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab, in fact I'll grab the first frame on this text button right here, and I'm just going to go to my text button here, and I'm just going to say something like, this is the home page of Hartnell College. Hartnell College is located in Salinas, California. You can keep adding text as long as you want. So, but this is our text right here. I'm going to pull this over a little bit. And this is just going to be static text. There's nothing dynamic. There's nothing fancy. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. And when we do this, that means we need to resize it, and we resize it by grabbing these pick boxes and making it smaller. So there's the Hartnell text. We'll do the same thing with the history text. We're going to do the same thing with the programs, and we're going to do the same thing with the bios. So I want you to go in and click in the history text next, add yourself a little bit of history text there, then go in and do the same with program, student bios, and yeah, those 4. And go ahead and do that. Pause the video right now so that you can add to each keyframe, and we're only adding it into the keyframe. So the next, we'll talk about what happens when you add text, how to fix that. So pause it right now, add your text, and we'll come back and fix some little things that are going to pop up on us. Okay, so you've added your text. You probably, if you scrub the timeline, you'll notice that there's a lot of text that interferes as we scrub the timeline. When we added our text here, we had a blank keyframe. And if you don't have a blank keyframe, if it looks like this, I'll go ahead and clear that. If you are here, you don't see anything. It's not until you start getting to the other text that it all starts piling on. So behind every piece of the blank keyframe, I want you to go in and, or not the blank keyframe, but the text where you've added it for your home, your history, your program. Behind that keyframe, I want you to click the little frame behind it, right mouse click, and insert a blank keyframe so that it hides that text. And I want you to do that for all of the keyframes. So insert a blank keyframe for all the text, and finally the last one is that. And then we'll have one that's on the end frame anyway. So that's okay. So as we scroll through, we should have text that goes all the way through. And I noticed that this one doesn't. Is it important? It's not that important until you remember what frame the student bio is when you go to put in your labels. So now we need to program the buttons. Now we need to do something. We've put our text in on their layers. Here's my home button. And I want to give it the instance name home, H-O-M-E. Make sure you spell it correctly because we're going to see this again. I'm going to hit on history. I'm going to select, the button's already selected, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in history. And if I want to make sure, make sure it's typed in history. I want to make sure that that is in fact the instance name of the button. So I want to go back and make sure in the instance name it's history here. So we always have to make sure that, see, notice what happened here with history when I selected this. This gave it a label, the keyframe a label. I don't want that. So if you see a keyframe label pop up, a little red flag, that's a label on the keyframe. We don't want that. We want the button itself to have in its properties the instance name there. So I'm going to go through in programs. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to type programs. And then finally the last one, I'm going to hit student bio, and I'm going to type student bio, all one word, because I'm going to just make it simple for myself. So now I've got them all labeled. Now I need to go into this frame and into the action script on the first frame. Right mouse click, go to your actions. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually tell the computer, or I'm going to tell Flash what I want it to do with these buttons. So we're going to actually program these buttons so that the button goes to the text that's appropriate for the button. So let's do this. I'm going to go underscore root period, and then I'm going to call the name home that I want it to go to, and it's going to say on release. Okay, turns blue, equals function, and we're going to give it a function. We're going to say go to and stop, and we want to stop in frame 1. Okay. It's already going to stop in frame 1 because we've got a stop action right here, but this label and this button action script is going to be used when we click other buttons that have the history text. So when the history text comes up and we want to go back to the home button, we click on the home button, it takes us there. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this for each one of the buttons. So I'm going to come down here, hit enter, hit paste. I'm going to change home to history, and notice, I have everything listed here. And remember, history isn't 1, it's not even 2, it's actually 3, keyframe 3. So if I want to look, I can pull this off to the side here and go, oh shoot, I didn't want to do that. There we go. I can, nope, let me go back to my timeline. I can go back here and notice that this is actually, which frame is that? should be frame 3. 1, 2, 3. So when I'm putting in my actions, I want to make sure that I'm typing those correctly. Okay? So let me go back to my darn timeline. Gosh darn it. Here we are. So we've got that correct. We come here, hit enter. I'm going to paste the same. I'm going to change this to project. And on project, I should change that to 4. And then finally on the last one, I'm going to paste that in and I'm going to put student bio. Okay, and if it says student bios, we want to make sure, and we'll know right away if that's going to work or not. So, fingers crossed, everything's going to work. So here we are. Let's check student bio. Good. So, if everything works like it's supposed to, we'll hit Control Enter. We'll test the movie history. The text changes. Awesome. So programs, we have a problem, and I think it's because of our naming. So naming is real important, but here's student bios, here's home, here's history. So that worked out really well. Now, if you want to add images to this, you can put images in the text on that layer so that when it pops up, an image pops up right there along with the text. So you can be as creative or non-creative as you want. This is basic text. You know, this is a basic flash text website, not a lot to it. It's really manipulatable, so you can put anything you want. If you want to put a button down here that says pictures, and then you can put pictures in here so students can see it, even better. This is a pretty small website size. If we want to make it bigger, obviously we can go to our control, our modify documents, and make this much bigger. But we need to go to that one place and look at our actions and see, oh, you know what, we called it project when it should have been programs. Programs. Let's see how that works. We'll go back to our timeline, test our movie again. History, programs, good, everything works. Perfect. So this is one of those ways that we've actually used programming to manipulate our buttons and put this all together so that what we have now is a complete website. Again, if I want to come in here and I want to add some pictures, I can do that pretty simply. I just go to this student, say the student bio section, and in here I can add a picture. I'll just go ahead and draw a box so that you can see how simple this can really be once we get into that layer. So here's a box for that. Let's give it some color. We're going to say we want this to be blue. So let's say this is represents a blue box of some type. So once I go ahead and I control this, as I start to go through my little, and there would be my picture if I wanted to add a picture. Okay, so this is as easy as it gets. This is some really basic scripting that takes a movie clip and turns it into a button. There's other ways to do this. If we wanted to use the movie clip the button controls, then we would actually add the action scripting to the button. But as it is right now, the action scripting is right here at the main menu, right on the front, and this is where it all goes. So that makes it pretty simple for us. This way we're not all over the place trying to figure out where and how we did certain things. This is as basic as it gets, but it's not too basic. So, you know, spelling's important, labeling your instances is important, and then of course, you know, making any changes is remembering that how you did that. I'm going to go ahead and scoot this over just a bit so it doesn't look so bad. And we're going to change that home text right there over, move it just a smidge too. So you can go in and modify this. This is not a real big scene. Display wise, you can go in and make it bigger. Obviously, it's pretty much up to you. This is as basic as it gets though, so when you build this, I want you to try and be a little more creative. Make it bigger. So remember, go to your displays, set all of those things up first, go to modify your document. You can make this 800 by 600 and watch what happens. So our display gets changed. This means we get to move things around a little bit. If I want to come in here and I need to make my buttons bigger, obviously, you know, I can do that because now I've got room to actually come in here and start making some different changes. Remember though, if you're going to make the buttons all bigger, make that first button bigger and then just go in and copy it. So that what you're doing is you're actually just copying the button and you're not stuck with, oops, you know, let's go change that back. You're not stuck with having to do it 4 times like I am right now. So it makes it a little easier when you do, you know, those shortcuts like that. Those are the kinds of things that, you know, you want to look for to save yourself some time and space and work and all of that. Now I can just come back here, select this button here so I can make it bigger if I want to, resize it. But anyway, that way when we make these changes we can go ahead and once we change the scale it becomes a little easier for us to come in and make them bigger or whatever. So we're not really stuck. Remember, we're not really stuck when it comes to putting the text or the website, as long as you know how to go about changing these things. So I'm going to just play around a little bit so you can see what happens. If this is going to be changed, it should be much bigger than that. We'll say, how about 20? So now it's much bigger. So let's look to see what we have now. So here's our big old honkin' website. We've made some changes. Obviously, I didn't look at how big it was down here, so I need to, you know, move this. And so again, you know, this gives us the ability, whoops, we're never stuck with anything in Flash. We can always go in and make some changes, you know, move things around, play around, and make them better. But learning the basics is really important, and that's what you really want to be focusing on right now, is learning those basics, getting those basic skills down so that when you go in to modify them, you don't get stuck. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right, so play around, design the website. You can think outside the box. I'm more interested in that you understand how to make these changes and how to make the website, how to do the programming so you can make it look any way you want. Pretty much the design and the construction is up to you, as long as you can facilitate this. The next tutorial that will follow this is building the preloader for this. So get this done and then start the preloader tutorial.